Within the community, there has always been a small portion of it that pushes the game to its limits. There are a plethora of challenges the community takes on, such as unit restrictions to ban certain categories of units, minimal slot lineups to make the most out of the given units, and using one lineup to beat multiple stages. While these restrictions and modifications can be hard, the stage itself dictates if it makes them mildly challenging or absurdly difficult. There have always been stages more challenging than others under certain restrictions and became more notorious within the community, but there is one stage that is infamous for just how unfair it is normally, which becomes utterly ridiculous under challenge restrictions. This is the history of the Battle Cat's most infamous challenge. We'll Meet Again is a Merciless rated stage that was released in version 8.7.5, and it is a part of the Evangelion collab. It features only 4 enemies: Trolley Blogger, BB Bunny, Shibalian, and EVA Unit 13. We will focus on the shining star of this stage for now. Unit 13's stats look wild on paper, having 4 million HP and around 25k DPS with 100k damage burst. If that wasn't enough, it strengthens by 100% once it reaches half HP, and has an insane Omni Strike reaching up to 1200 range. There are a couple weaknesses that can be exploited on Unit 13, but we will talk about them later once we get to the strategies for the stage. As for the peons, the BB Bunny and Shibalian are buffed to 4000% and Trolley Blogger to 200%. It doesn't seem that bad since they would all still die to a slime wave, but their magnifications do become relevant later on, in conjunction with higher crowns, which will be explained later. The earliest completions I could find on YouTube were on June 24th and the 25th in 2019. In these videos, we can already start to see one of the weaknesses in Unit 13 show: his low standing range. While it does have an insane Omni Strike reach, the range to actually trigger its attack is a measly 200, so by avoiding using meat shields and using EVA Killer Ubers that outrange it, they were able to juggle Unit 13 and prevent it from ever attacking. What is an EVA Killer Uber? Almost any Uber that is gotten from the Evangelion banners comes with the EVA Killer ability, where against any EVA Angel enemy, they will deal 5 times the damage and only take 1/5 of the damage from them. Along with this, there is a combo called You Will Find Happiness, where when activated, it buffs the ability and units with it will now deal 25 times the damage and only take 1/25 of the damage. This is how Ponos incentivized players to unlock EVA Killer Ubers during the collab, where players would get to use the EVA mechs and see how they fare in battle against the EVA Angels. And just as intended, it was such an effective strategy that players already started pushing the stage, having done a 2-unit completion featuring Manic Lion and EVA Unit 01. Manic Lion will become a staple unit in this level because of its fast speed and decent HP, being able to stall Unit 13 to prevent it from gaining ground. In this case, it stalled long enough to allow saving up for EVA Unit 01, which was then able to solo both the peons and Unit 13 to complete the stage without too much trouble. It's not just EVA Killer Ubers that were useful against Unit 13. Some select EVA Killer super rares also proved valuable against it. Rei, Asuka, and Mari were the best options to use in this stage for their stats, and Asuka being strong against reds was helpful to dispose of the BB Bunny fast. Stacking them on the initial peons would allow them to stack up enough damage to constantly juggle Unit 13 and the peons, so they are a strong option to rely on outside of EVA Killer Ubers. It did not take long before players had beaten the stage under the no gacha restriction, and when I say not long, I mean literally a day after the first initial clears. What is no gacha though? It is a playstyle and self-imposed challenge where it bans the use of any unit obtained through the rare ticket gacha machine. This means no units like Ramen or Can, no Ultra Forms or Fests, nothing. You only get access to units you get from rewards from stage completions, cabinet challenges, daily login rewards, and other non-rare ticket gacha machines. So what options were players left with to take on Unit 13 under this restriction? Not too many options really. There were very few units that had the speed like Manic Lion that could also supply decent enough damage, but there were still options available. Let's go over this lineup and explain why these units were chosen, starting with Bullet Train Cat. It has faster speed than Manic Lion, and great burst damage along with the double bounty ability. Perfect option for picking off the peons, and one of the most important units for this stage. An unusual pick of a unit that was used early on was Bridal Princess Pun. A no Gacha collab unit being used practically? I know, surprising. Her stats are not the best, dealing only half of the damage Bullet Train can deal at the same level, but she has decent enough speed to make herself worthwhile under these restrictions. The next interesting part of the lineup is the Research combo, but it is not only used for what you may be thinking initially. Biohazard is a small effect Research combo, which reduces cooldown rates by 26 frames. While it helps with spamming units, there is one unit in this combo that is relevant and gets used, being Hyper Mister. His attack power is weaker than Manic Lion, and his health is lower than Princess Pun, but his speed and cooldown rate being faster than Princess Pun allows him to be a substitute meat shield and disposable damager. Another surprising component of the strategy is actually the Cat Cannon itself. While Unit 13 is immune to waves, which includes the base Cat Cannon, it is still helpful for clearing out all the trolley bloggers on the field, and dealing decent damage towards the other peons. The last star of the lineup is, of course, Awakened Bahamut. If there is a strategy that involves rushers, he will be there. His quick speed and phenomenal damage output make him a no-brainer. Looking at the final lineup composition, we can section off units into their own categories for what their purpose is. Manic Lion serves as our main staller, and Princess Pun and Bullet Train serve as our main damage sources to take care of the BB Bunnies and Shibalians respectively. If either units are on cooldown, Mr. can be sent in as a substitute to stall Unit 13, or as supplemental damage with Manic Lion. Bahamut will usually only be sent out to deal damage onto Unit 13, along with a Sniper Interrupt to get the most out of him, but he can also be used as a panic button to clear the peons. What is a Sniper Interrupt? A Sniper Interrupt is using the Sniper power-up to attack an enemy while they are in the middle of their attack animation to disrupt and reset their attack. In this case here, it buys Bahamut enough time to get one more attack off before being deleted out of existence. As a side note, due to Unit 13 spawning in on a timer early on, a Rich Cat will be used as it would be much more difficult or impossible without it due to the nature of the no Gacha challenge, and this will stay on moving forward. For the last part of this lineup, the Cat Cannon gets fired whenever there are peons on the field. That's it for explaining and executing this lineup. It doesn't sound hard mechanically, but the main challenge is having the game sense to react to situations and mistakes accordingly, and having the stamina and endurance to keep it up for around 20 minutes. Of course, for a challenge to be infamous, it can't be that quick and simple, so let's move on to the real challenge of this stage. And if you're enjoying the video so far, please consider subscribing, liking, or hyping this video. 101.6% of you all aren't subscribed, so it would help me out a ton, and I would appreciate it a lot. As is typical with most stages, including collabs, this level gets buffed through higher crown difficulties for some added replayability and challenge. The buffs are typically small to still be possible while adding some challenge to it, but this stage is made to be quite the exception to this. Crowns represent the overall magnification of the stage. For example, 1 crown is the standard difficulty or base magnification, while 2 and 3 crown would be stronger magnifications. It maxes out at 4 crown, where it typically resets back to the standard magnification, but places a restriction, allowing only rare and special units. With We'll Meet Again, it only goes up to 3 crown, which is different from how crowns on collab stages typically are, especially considering that for collabs specifically, 4 crown actually has the highest magnifications. So how did Ponos compensate for this? By simply making the difference between crowns stronger, where 2 crown doubles the buffs, and 3 crown triples the buffs of the stage. This is where the stage starts to become horrifying, because the buffs on these enemies were unseen like anything before. Let's recall back to the stats and magnifications of all of them. Unit 13's already bloated stats now skyrocket to disgusting levels at 300% magnification, having 300k damage and 12 million HP. The only other enemies that can match or beat the HP of this insanity of an enemy are both from the Madoka collab, and while they do have more health than Unit 13, they either don't have the damage to back it up, or have big exploitable weaknesses to nullify the danger of them. Not to mention that now when Unit 13's Berserk is activated, it deals 600k damage each attack, killing both Stone and Doron in one hit. Trolley Blogger gets the weakest buffs, going from 200% to 600% in 3 crown, which still dies to almost anything. It does take a Manic Lion longer to kill it though, which could let it proc its knockback more and cause potential trouble. As for the BB Bunny and Shibalian, they turn into absolute monsters, going from 4000% to 12,000% in 3 crown. To put this into perspective, no other stage in the game comes close to having such ridiculously buffed peons, with the only closest example being Refusal type from the same collab, where it has similarly buffed peons in support. Even if the peons seem simple to deal with, you have to keep in mind that they're paired with a boss that will essentially delete everything on the field, and their bulk can make them push up really easily to make you lose ground and the stage. One might look at this and think, how are you even supposed to beat this level under the no gacha restriction? Hell, even without EVA killer units. It already becomes a struggle with EVA killer units as they require setup and timing to get it right. It can't be possible to beat down a 12 million HP boss that can delete anything and everything on the field in an instant, along with cosmic monster peons like those. And the consensus seemed to agree that it wouldn't be possible. You had to use some sort of EVA killer units to beat it. The JP community, having the overall better players at the game, could not beat a no gacha and assumed it was humanly impossible and moved on from it. The stats of the enemies just seemed too egregious, and the average length of each attempt taking close to half an hour, where one small mistake can cost you the run, it just seemed too much to go up against. On top of this, due to the stage being from a collab, they were only on for a relatively short time. Once the collab ended, no one knew when it would rerun, so doing attempts would be inconsistent. And so, the challenge faded into the background, while other stages were pushed, standing as the stage that made beating all of the game under no gacha impossible. Except for some players in the EN community. They believed it was possible, and started to theorycraft lineups and develop strategies to beat the impossible stage through Battle Cat's Ultimate, with one player spearheading attempts at it. Battle Cat's Ultimate, often shortened and referred to as BCU, is a community-made program that is a Battle Cats emulator. It allows players to play any stage, and modify any levels of units and base upgrades, and also create fan-made content to play with. This can allow for strat testing without having to use any resources or wait for any level to be available. It is not the main game though, it is simply an emulator of it. It's important to make this distinction, as since these are not done in the real game, they are technically not legit. There are some small differences between the main game and emulator, such as the sniper power-up having no delay in toggling in BCU compared to the main game, but it ultimately just comes down to the fact that it is an emulation of the game, not a real playthrough. It does not take away from the fact that these runs proved what was possible, and are still very impressive. I will provide a notifier for when a run showcased is done in BCU through this little Battle Cat. The first documented attempts of this challenge started in 2021 by Game Changer. Unfortunately, there is no recorded footage of his progress, but according to Game Changer, he could only get Unit 13 down to 68% after a few days of attempts, in which he decided to stop with the challenge and try again another time. While the lineup for this run is unknown, Game Changer said he experimented around with using both Bridal Princess Punt and Cat Princess at the time, especially with Bridal Princess Punt since her damage was still reasonable. This would be the best run known for a while, until in 2023 where a group of Japanese players would come together and try and get a run of this challenge. One of the players would supposedly beat the challenge and post their lineup, but this completion would have some doubt about its legitimacy. Nowadays, the proof of this player's lineup is deleted, but thanks to a comment under one of Manic King Dragonstack's videos, we can take a look at what the lineup could have been. The first oddity with it is how it misses a crucial unit, Slime Cat. It is one of the core pillars to the lineup, right beside Manic Lion in terms of importance, as it makes beating the peons possible in the first place. At level 50, Slime deals 40,500 damage, and has a guaranteed chance to unleash a level 5 wave. This becomes the main way to deal with the insane juiced up stats of the peons, as it can deal a little over a third of the Shibalian health, and over half of the BB Bunny health, making it magnitudes easier to hold up against them. As we saw before, Slime is missing in this lineup, which is very strange because any player that would run this challenge would 100% have Slime in the lineup. Without Slime, there simply wouldn't be enough damage available to defend against the peons. The other weird part of this lineup is the combo that they use. 3 Kings combo is a small defense up combo that boosts the unit's HP by 10%. We can only take a guess at what it could have been used for, with the most likely answer being to have Doran used more easily during the second half of the fight, since he would have enough HP to tank a strengthened Unit 13 hit. This, however, would only really benefit Doran, and taking up 3 slots would be too much investment for such a small return of value. This is only my best guess though. We will never know for sure since the lineup is gone and the player is unknown. Besides those 2 points, the lineup did make some sense, utilizing Courier and Supercar, which were some very potent power creep to the level. Courier acting as a counter to the BB Bunny, and Supercar as a supplementary damager were both sensible picks, but we will dive into why later. In the same year, the JP community would get a good run in the real game, beating Unit 13 down to around 60 to 50% HP left. Unfortunately, this also has no public footage of it from what I could find. After this small incident with the alleged cheater, activity would grow quiet again until late 2024, where a new player would rise up and start taking attempts at this challenge. Vulius would make a task of the stage where he restricted himself to doing it with no EVA killer units or Ubers, and using no power creep. No power creep is a restriction like no Gacha, but instead of restricting to only units outside of the rare ticket Gacha machine, you're only allowed units on a stage that was available at that time. This would mean that you would not be able to use Courier in Cats of the Cosmos or Stories of Legends, or use Baja Blast to breeze through the entire game. You might be wondering then why Slime Cat and Stone Cat are in the lineup when the restriction would ban them, as they came out after the stage was released in 2019. That would be true for the regular stage, but crowns for it were actually released years after it initially came out. 3 crown for We'll Meet Again was added in version 10.2. The same update that Stone Cat was added into the game, with Stone Cat appearing earlier than 3 crown Will Meet Again, which therefore isn't power creep and allowed. I mentioned that this run is a TAS, but what does that mean? TAS stands for Tool Assisted Speedrun, where external tools were used to have finer control over the game to craft a theoretical best run. For Vulius' TAS run, he would only use save states and timescale as his external tools, which allowed him to replay from specific points in the run and redo timings and decisions. After his TAS run, Vulius would post about other stages and challenges in the game, but would eventually return back to start attempting real runs of the challenge in late February due to the release of the infamous Baja Blast. Bahamut's talents cutting down the length of the run massively would inspire Vulius enough to think it's doable and start doing attempts. His first progress video would end with him getting Unit 13 down to 73% HP. With this run, Game Changer would see Vulius attempting runs and be inspired to pick it back up again, especially with the progress that was made throughout the years by other players, and all the power creep that was introduced into the game, especially with Baja Blast. And on March 1st, 2025, Game Changer would post the first ever completion of We'll Meet Again, No Gacha, 3 crown. This was a monumental occasion for challenge runners in the Battle Cats. A once thought impossible stage under these restrictions being finally taken down after standing for 5 years. It would stand as one of the biggest accomplishments for the community. Let's look at Game Changer's game-changing lineup that changed the game. What a fucking stupid line. We'll start with Slime Cat, where as explained earlier he's a core part of the lineup. Being able to dish out 40,500 damage to incoming peons is insanely valuable, and with his true form he gets much easier and more consistent to use. Having 33% faster speed, more standing range, and 2 more levels to his wave attack allows him to cover almost the entire battlefield. It's a very potent buff that makes Slime a lot less risky to use. One downside is if Slime dies to Unit 13, which happens a lot, the remaining wave attack will be weakened by Unit 13, having the damage on his wave. While this hurts his damage output and makes it harder to defend the peons, it's still important damage and it's better than nothing. Plus the weakened damage can still combo well with the next unit. We all know him, we either love him or hate him, Courier Cat. Dealing massive damage against red enemies, he can stand up to the insane buffs of the BB Bunny, as he can deal almost 45,000 damage in one hit to it. If we recall back to how much HP the BB Bunny has, it can still survive a Courier hit, but if we connect a Slime attack or wave onto it, it dies. Even if Slime does a weakened wave onto it, it's still enough to make this interaction work. This does not make dealing with the BB Bunny completely trivial though, as Courier alone cannot land an attack, since BB Bunny runs right into Courier's blind spot. You need to have something to meat shield, or to use an enemy as a stepping stone in front of Courier so they don't enter into his blind spot fast enough. Manic Lion is the obvious choice for meat shielding, but there is another option if Manic Lion is on cooldown. Stone Cat acts as a supplemental meat shield installer, where when paired with Manic Lion, they could infinitely stall Unit 13 when it's alone. It's important to note that while Stone is used for its health to act as a wall, its damage is actually something to consider. It's able to eliminate a trolley blogger, which is helpful to keep a consistent stall going and to prevent it from causing any knockbacking trouble, but it can also combo in certain interactions to help eliminate a peon faster. Another unit that helps immensely with the peons is Supercar Cat. Being able to deal 81,000 damage allows clearing out peons to be much easier, but just like Courier, it's not completely trivial. There is a nice interaction between Supercar and BB Bunny, where Supercar one-shots BB Bunny first, but against Shibalian, it unfortunately dies before it can land a hit. Because of this interaction, a meat shield is needed to bait its attack first to allow Supercar to slip in and land its attack on the Shibalian. This interaction is crucial, as it takes a huge chunk of HP off of the Shibalian and helps eliminate it without losing too much ground. The next unit coming up can combo well with Supercar to clean up the Shibalian. Bullet Train is as important as ever, being yet another core pillar in lineups. The burst damage and double bounty really becomes important, as with certain strategies, cash actually becomes a limiting factor. It's also able to combo with virtually all units because of its speed and damage. One Bullet Train hit guarantees a knockback on any peon, and allows it to quickly finish off a peon if they're hit by any other unit. For example, Bullet Train can combo with Slime and or Courier onto the BB Bunny, and combo with Supercar onto the Shibalian. The Research combo is the same as before, helpful for the whole lineup and gives the option to use Mister as a somewhat fast meat shield, making certain interactions to defend against easier. It's worth mentioning at this time that a different combo is in consideration for the stage. Using a small speed up combo from either Koi Cat and Tricycle Cat, or a Future Cat and Royal Guard would give a 10% movement speed boost to all units. This would make general timings for everything easier, which would then allow for a more aggressive playstyle because of it, and when you're playing a stage for a minimum of 20 minutes per run, anything to help make the timings easier is worth considering. An upside to this is that it allowed for an interaction with Slime to be possible, where Slime has just enough speed to reach and connect an attack onto Unit 13 before dying without the help of a sniper interrupt. The main downside to this compared to a Research combo is that if a timing was messed up, it would be a little more punishing having to wait for the unit to come back, which could end the run in certain cases. Ultimately, Changer decided to go with the Research combo for the added unit and certain easier interactions. This wouldn't be the only dilemma in choice though, as the next unit had alternative options. Syractes, also known as Socrates or Sock, is used here for his Conjure ability as a panic button to quickly clear peons. Being able to dish out around 73,000 damage in a pinch, with good coverage and invulnerability to everything, is very nice to have when things look scary. I mentioned though that Syractes had alternative choices that could replace him. How come? Syractes is very expensive and an extremely inefficient use of money. Spending 4,350 cents to deal a one-time burst of damage isn't always the best, especially if his Conjure misses some peons due to being just outside the range. Along with his long cooldown of over 2 minutes, you really had to make it count and survive long enough just to have this safety net come back. This is where Doran comes in as an alternative to Syractes. Doran has a much cheaper cost, a faster cooldown rate, and a much better damage output on average. Sounds like a much better option overall, until we reach half HP on Unit 13. As shown earlier, when Unit 13 is in Berserk mode, it one-shots Doran, losing a lot of value in the second half of the fight. If you wanted to use Doran when Unit 13's Berserk is active, you either had to give up ground or utilize a sniper interrupt to have him attack before dying. Syractes does not have this issue though, since Conjures just dodge everything anyways, resulting in a much more consistent option throughout the entire battle. Arguments were made for either unit, but for Changer he decided to use Syractes for his consistency and reliability throughout the entire fight. Finally, we come back to the last star in the lineup. Bahamut's purpose is still the same, but he gains even more value now than he had before. With the introduction of his talents, it effectively doubled his damage and gave him Pierce, causing his value to skyrocket. He cuts down the runtime of attempts significantly and becomes a safe emergency option, essentially giving a free defense against the peons whenever he is off cooldown. His talents paved the way for changers and future players' completions. Of course, with Bahamut, it's always ideal to pair him with a sniper interrupt to maximize the most value out of him. Speaking of sniper interrupts, the sniper power-up becomes the last core pillar to the strategy due to being the only way to interrupt and push back Unit 13. Due to the ridiculous stats, the sniper power-up will hit Unit 13 tens of hundreds of times throughout the run, which results in ridiculous amounts of space gained. Without sniper, the run would truly be borderline impossible to beat, since losing any amount of ground would be permanently lost until Unit 13 gets naturally staggered. The last noteworthy aspects of Changer's lineup is his cannon and foundation choices. For his cannon, he decided to go with Iron Wall to use as a defensive tool against tough peon waves to stall them until units came off cooldown or to set them up to be dealt with more easily, such as the case where Iron Wall keeps the peons behind Unit 13 to allow for some direct chip damage and peon clearing at the same time. If timed correctly, Iron Wall can disappear right after Unit 13 starts its attack, which can allow the peons to be lured forward to have Slime clear them out easier. As for the foundation, he went with the Water Blast base for a 15% damage reduction against red enemies. This set up a nice interaction between BB Bunny and Manic Lion, where Manic Lion could tank 2 hits from the bunny whenever their knockback count was at 5 or 3 knockbacks left. And that's the lineup for the first winner of the challenge. It had finally been done. The only questions left were would there be more winners, and when would this be done in the real game? Well, we wouldn't have to wait too long for the next victors. About a month later, on April 10th, 2025, Victories would get his run on We'll Meet Again No Gacha 3 crown as the second victor, and 2 days later on April 12th, Rizmo as Pro would become the third victor. One interesting note of their lineups is that they both have Courier missing. The rationale at the time was because of Courier's interaction with the BB Bunny running into his blind spot, it was difficult to set him up and use him effectively, so they opted for other options. In place of Courier, Victories' lineup opted to have both Seractes and Doron in, while Rizmo's lineup would include Doron as well, but trade out Seractes for Super Feline. According to Rizmo in the description of their video, it was because they, quote, generally found Super Feline more consistent and available, although this comes at the cost of the requirement of a higher amount of money management and potentially risky maneuvering, such as exploiting its rebound, end quote. Another difference between their lineups is that Victories used Iron Wall like Game Changer, but Rizmo used Slow Beam instead. The idea behind using Slow Beam instead of Iron Wall was to allow Doron to work better when Unit 13 was strengthened, by stalling the peons and luring Unit 13 forward to buy Doron enough time to get his attack off. In Rizmo's case, this was likely one of the reasons they used Slow Beam, but the main reason according to the description of their video was to avoid having their game crash whenever they attempted to use Iron Wall. Lastly, instead of using a research combo, they both used a speed up combo instead to help make the timings easier and for the special slime interaction. After all this development in BCU, the first in-game run completion would be done on July 19th, 2025 as the Evangelion collab ran again for JP around this time, meaning this would technically be the first legitimate completion of the challenge. This run would be done by Amoke, using a very similar lineup to Changers, but utilizing a speed-up combo instead of a research combo for the special slime interaction, which this run heavily revolves around. With that, this would be the end of the history of this challenge. Its impressive 5 years of standing, being beaten and proven possible in BCU, and finally being done in-game would be the most logical conclusion to end on, but I want to briefly touch upon how this stage was pushed even further beyond up to current day. With a stage this difficult, players looked into the possibility of cheesing the stage and avoiding the arduous challenge. 7 would find a no gacha cheese strategy on July 25th, 2025, but as it would turn out, it would be more challenging than if someone were to play the challenge the intended way. The setup for the cheese would require having to deal 2 million damage onto Unit 13 to hit its first natural knockback point, but have it in a way where you would use Stone Cat to deal the last needed damage to stagger Unit 13 back. During its knockback, you would have needed to time both Bahamut and Bullet Train to clip through Unit 13 far enough to not trigger its attack. Even after that, we're not done quite yet. You need to have stalled Unit 13 far away enough this entire time to ensure enough space is there for Unit 13 to not snipe your base before you beat the enemy base down, which makes timing Bahamut and Bullet Train more difficult. The reason for this is, if we recall, Unit 13 has an Omni Strike that reaches further forward, but as an anti-cheese it also reaches backwards a ridiculous amount, negative 3600 range. Safe to say that if it attacks, nothing is surviving behind Unit 13. Even with those done, you would need to pray to RNG that the peon spawns line up with when Bahamut attacks to prevent Bahamut from taking any damage. If a peon slips through and knocks him back, it can ruin the cheese entirely. With all these factors in consideration, it would just seem easier to kill Unit 13 instead of doing the cheese strategy. To this day, 7's video is the only known completion of this strategy. Shortly after the in-game cheese completion, a new player would start playing and showcasing harder variations of the original challenge. Mana King Dragonstack, also known as MKD, had made some contributions before, such as bringing up the usage of a speed combo to the stage, but this next technique he really emphasized on would pave the way for harder challenges to be possible. He figured out that after Sniper hits Unit 13, leaving Sniper on for 2 attack cycles would let Sniper charge up its attack and would toggle it mid-battle to save it for when he wanted Slime to get an attack off. This allows for a much more reliable way to have Slime attack and reduce the amount of weakened wave hits on the peons, which makes defending against them much easier. In his minimal slot runs, we can see this strong sniper control in action, where MKD has Sniper fire at Unit 13 as often as possible, being typically paired with Slime to help deal with the peon waves. The stage revolves around being able to deal with the peons effectively, and in the 5-slot lineup, it showcases the bare amount of units needed to deal with them. Much later, this challenge would also be done in-game on December 15th by Serventa, and by 2 other players, Maxim and Seinstein, on December 19th and the 24th respectively. As a small note, Maxim's run has a small difference where they use the Breaker Blast base for a 15% damage reduction against aliens instead of the Water Blast base. This allows Manic Lion to survive another hit from Shibalian before dying, allowing for better stalling against them. We'll Meet Again No Gacha 3 Crown at this point was becoming more optimized and mainstreamed into both EN and JP communities. The difficulty was significantly reduced thanks to all the development and strategies in power creep, but a question that started going around was, would it even be possible to beat it without power creep? Of course, at the time it seemed impossible, but with all the new developments and better understanding of the stage, surely there's a better chance at beating it, right? MKD would think of this and take a look into it. Initially, he viewed it to be impossible, as the units available during this time just seemed too weak to stand up against the peons, and would leave it as that for some months. On the contrary, Kaipora would think about this and take up the challenge, which would end up taking them some months to work on it, but ultimately on December 17th, 2025, they would achieve a no power creep, no Eva killer, and no Ubers run. This lineup only included 2 Gacha units, being Fishman and Power Cutter Cat. Fishman was a general damager, being good for either peon, while Power Cutter Cat would specialize in dealing with the BB Bunny. A small thing to note is that while Power Cutter Cat does have a guaranteed survivability, it isn't freeze immune, so it rarely gets to utilize its strengthen, if ever. There is a cannon, being Curse Blast, that disables Unit 13's freezing ability to allow Power Cutter Cat to use its strengthen, but it gives such little in return when the other cannons of choice bring a lot more value, that it isn't considered for 3 crown outside of normal runs. Because of Kaipora and other friends, it made MKD reconsider and realize that beating We'll Meet Again with no gacha and no power creep was doable. It just required practice and patience to learn and refine a skill and lineup. And on December 26, 2025, he would present his run of We'll Meet Again, 3 crown, no gacha, and no power creep. We see Bridal Princess Punt make a return here, but also some new faces such as Heavy Assault CAT and Rampaging Yamato. Heavy Assault CAT serves as a general damager to chip down either the BB Bunny or Shibalian, and Yamato serves as a Shibalian specialist with his massive damage ability towards aliens. This run would take a grueling 48 minutes to beat with plenty of close calls to death, but eventually MKD would win over the stage and truly mark the end of this stage's infamous status. Except there is one hiccup with this, as one component of this lineup invalidates the whole run. Was it one of the new units, like CAT with its talents? Not with CAT. Its talents were released in version 10.0, which is before We'll Meet Again 3 crown. It might not be obvious at first glance, but for the observant viewers, they would have noticed the base HP is at level 30 stats. When 3 crown was released, The max level you could upgrade the base HP to was level 20, with upgrading to level 30 being released in version 11.8. This, of course, would count as a level of power creep, therefore invalidating the challenge. You might think, that shouldn't invalidate the challenge. Even with the 40,000 HP boost, Unit 13 still one-shots the base regardless, so it doesn't affect anything, which is true. However, our beloved sniper power-up actually benefits from this health increase. Its damage is directly linked to the cat base's HP, dealing 5% of the maximum health of the base in damage. At level 20, the cat base has a max HP of 196,000, which means the sniper power-up will deal 9,800 damage towards the frontmost enemy. At level 30, it has a max HP of 236,000, causing our sniper power-up to deal 11,800 damage. Meaning for MKD's run, his sniper power-up was dealing an extra 2,000 damage, something that would not be possible at the stage's release. It sounds pretty insignificant, but Sniper is hitting Unit 13 hundreds of times throughout the run, and that extra 2,000 damage racks up quickly to have a significant impact on the run. Even though this minor change invalidates the run, the difference it has wouldn't make it impossible if it was fixed, and it is still a very impressive and significant run. J-Bone would also achieve a no gacha, no power creep run on December 30th, 2025, where they had an additional restriction using no collab units as well, meaning they would be missing some significant burst damage from Princess Punt and Yamato. They made up for the loss of this by utilizing both a speed up and research combo to have both easier timings and less punishing mistakes. Unfortunately, this run would also suffer the same oversight as MKD's run, having a level 30 cat base instead of level 20, invalidating the run. Eventually, Sign would rectify the loss of these invalid runs and achieve a no gacha, no power creep run on February 18th, 2026 on BCU Android. This run would actually prove even more challenging than both MKD's and J-Bone's invalid runs, as Sign would also run with no collab units and no Bahamut, prolonging the length of the run. The lineup would follow J-Bone's lineup, but without Bahamut, having Craze Cat in place of Bahamut and essentially playing with only 9 slots, as Craze Cat was never sent out once throughout the run. The biggest thing that stands out in this run is the tight timings. While the previous run also had some tight timings, Sign really pushed it in this run, abusing Unit 13's stagger from Sniper to clip rock through it to snipe any incoming trolley blockers to keep the stalling stable. Sign's run would last for a brutal 52 minutes before Unit 13 fell, resulting in one of the most impressive runs done, even if it is not technically legit due to being in BCU and on Android, which was known to have significant inaccuracies. Now we come to the present day. Sign's run would serve as the last practical challenge of We'll Meet Again, with only some jokey challenges being done on the stage afterwards. Taffy would take up doing a speedrun of the challenge to see how fast he can kill Unit 13, with his fastest kill being done in 16 minutes and 31 seconds in BCU. He would also go on to make a joke challenge where he would fight against Unit 13 10 times in a row. Why? Because he thought it would be funny. He would then spend 3.5 hours playing through this challenge. This wraps up every bit of history of this challenge, but this just leaves one last question. Who's the most recent victor? Not really an actual question if I'm being honest, it's really just a segue into mentioning how I beat this challenge for the video. In fact, that intro sequence and any uncredited footage were all my gameplay, meaning that yes, that kill at Unit 13 is an actual run of mine. I will provide a link in the description below to an unedited version of the run in full if you are curious to watch. I will also provide credit and links to every footage that I used for the making of this video. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. This video ended up being a much longer project than I initially anticipated. I learned a lot from this, and it was fun making this video. I assume you enjoyed this since you're here, so please do subscribe and leave a like, maybe even put a comment and give some hype. I'd like to give special thanks to Game Changer, Vuyus, and Mannequin Dragon's Tag for answering my questions and providing information about the history of this challenge. If you like seeing challenges and what's possible in the Battle Cats, make sure to check them out. I'd also like to give a very special thanks to Tavi, as he helped me immensely in beating We'll Meet Again No Gacha 3 Crown for the first time, and revising the script of this video. Please do check him out, as he also posts challenge completions and guides. Before we end this video, I'd like to bring your attention to the screen to ask you to complete this survey before you leave today. It'll just ask you a few questions right there about your experience. Just tap whenever you're ready, and we'll get you on your way.